Well, how's it going, everybody? And welcome to a return for the ND Ninja Fifth One Circuit Tour. I've got to find a quicker way of saying this, but we get that. For those of you guys that are new to this, we are doing a random tour around the world through all the circuits that have ever been on the F1 calendar from when it started in the 50s to now. How we pick it out is through a random wheel of names that happens at the end of the video. And then for the next piece, we will do a bit on that circuit, whether it be its history, its culture, any particular races that stand out, what's good about it, what's bad about it, all that sort of thing. And what I'll do is I'll pop a playlist in the top left hand corner so you get an opportunity to see the last videos. So, with this one, we're going to be going to Canada. And I suppose that the first thing to say is that the first thing people think of when they think of Canada and F1 is either the racing driver, Gilles Villeneuve, or the track, Gilles Villeneuve. After all, it's where the Canadian Grand Prix is being hosted at the moment. And it's quite a solid track that doesn't seem like it's ever going to be under threat on the calendar, but you never know. But you know, it wasn't always at this track in Montreal. It wasn't even always a permanent fixture. In fact, you used to switch between two. You know, similar to how we had Fuji and Suzuka that used to switch between the two. I think Donington and Silverstone had a similar sort of thing. Well, a thing happened in Canada in the 60s and 70s that was very similar to that. We had these two tracks. I have to say, firstly, very impressive looking tracks. The fact that they are basically going off into the forests and the mountains, which will be important later. But there were these two tracks, the Mosport Park, which is the first one, and the Circuit Mont-Tremblant, which is the second one. And it's going to be that one that we're going to focus on more. It seems like the smaller track, certainly a narrow track. And I mean, very picturesque, very beautiful, having a river alongside it as well. Very, very nice. Set in Quebec in Canada. Of course, it's set in Quebec in Canada. That was expected. But that is the track that we're going to look at. Very picturesque, very beautiful. We'll focus on the track a little bit more later on. Now, this track hosted 2 Grand Prix. Just 2. So you might be thinking, well, hold on. Does that mean there's no history at all with this track? Nothing special about it whatsoever. Well, for the last event in 1970, I certainly would agree with you. But for the race that happened in 1968 around this track, there is some history behind it. And I'm going to show you a driver that's been described as the best driver to never win a Grand Prix. Probably so only similar drivers to that would be like Sterling Moss, for example. And also a driver who many people consider to be the unluckiest driver in the world. A guy called Chris Amon. Now, Chris Amon is, for a lot of people, the best New Zealander to race in motorsport, to race in Formula One. Take that, Liam Lawson. Now, why do I say that? Why do I say that with such conviction that Chris Amon was considered the best New Zealander, the unluckiest driver of all? Well, I'm saying that because of his effort. Firstly, his efforts outside of Formula One. This guy won 24-hour races so easily. So he won the 24 Hour of Le Mans. He won the 24 Hour of Daytona. I think there was a couple of other races that he won as well. Hold on a second. Yeah, so there was also a Tasman Series, which is a non-championship event as well, that he won. But again, New had to win races, and 24-hour races in the 60s and 70s were hardcore because you had to be gentle with the car because they were fragile, because they were brittle, all that. And even in Formula One, even if we were to consider that that Formula One is the absolute pinnacle, and IndyCar and NASCAR and endurance racing doesn't even come close to Formula One. Even if we were to just consider his Formula One career, he had 11 podiums. He had 3 fastest laps. He achieved 5 pole positions. And every time he was due to win a race, the car would break down. And that's exactly what happened in the 1968 Grand Prix. So this was where, look, in this, that, seven. So I think it was 90 laps was the track. 17 laps from the end, Chris Amon broke down. But until then, he was winning. It was easy. It was absolutely easy. Denny Hulme and Bruce McLaren ended up winning it, but this was a driver that knew how to race. So, I mean, if we look back at that track, right, that picturesque track, that second track, I mean, it looks a bit narrow, but, I mean, sort of reminds me a bit of Imola. Reminds me a bit of, well, certainly not narrow in Monaco. So why has this track been removed? Well, you sort of have to go into the sort of geography of the area. I managed to get this from Google Maps actually. So highlighted in red is the Circuit Mont-Tremblant that we are talking about, that picturesque track. But there's an important area that I've circled in white. The village that is one of the villages that's nearby. I don't know how there's like so many Mont-Tremblants. There's a Mont-Tremblant village, there's another Mont-Tremblant, as you can see on the far right, but we're focusing on that area, which is next to the lake of Mont-Tremblant. Because you see, you can see this particular map in a bit of a closer scale with some very, very local maps, in fact. These local maps. I don't know if you know what these types of maps are, but if you do not, they are skiing maps. Yes, that is correct. The Circuit Mont-Tremblant is next to a ski resort. Can you imagine why this is a bit of a challenge? A bit of a challenge to try and squeeze this in. Mainly because for at least 6 months of the year, Mont-Tremblant and the track looks like this. Bit tricky to hold a race in snow. It'd be fun, don't get me wrong, it'd be hilarious. But it might be a bit dangerous. I mean, after lap 5 or 6, we might feel a bit awkward through a driver injury or worse because of the snow. So, understandably so, after 2 races, it was originally planned that Motorsport and Mont-Tremblant were actually going to switch for longer than just the 2 races, up to about 20 years. No, sorry, 10 years. No, tell a lie. So it's going to have at least 5, but after 2, they realised it just wasn't going to work out. Scheduling issues, wintering issues, all this was problems that was going on. And apparently, even when it wasn't snowing, there were winds that were basically changing the way the track was, which made it Also, less grippy even when it wasn't snowing. So does that mean that this track is consigned to the history books and no one can use it? No, not at all. In fact, it's still used for the odd race day. One used in 2018, and there's videos showing it. And you can check out the track for yourself in Quebec, in Mont-Tremblant. But ultimately, after 2 races, it was consigned to the history books. So, that was Mont-Tremblant. Probably not the most exhilarating of the episodes that we've done, but it's a good way to start. So now let's go to that wheel of names, to this track list. We are going to see which track that we go to next. There are 68 in total, which means that it'll probably be about 15,000 years before I finish all this. So which one is going to be our next track? We have got Estoril. Okay, we're going to be going to Estoril. I'm pretty sure that might be Portugal. It is, in fact, Portugal. So we are going to be going from the wintry hills of Canada to the warm place. So until then, guys, take care of yourselves and see you around.